You're not too far from writing an application that looks something like this. What's common about this particular application? Text boxes. There's a lot of them on here. You're going to learn how to use text boxes, how to bring in data, and what to do with that data once you got it. Let's take a look. Hi, my name is Daryl, and this is Programming in Any Language, my channel. Today we're going to look at text boxes and a little bit about variables, string variables in particular. So let's open up a Visual Studio application here and get going on this thing. I'm going to basically create a brand new project, and we'll begin the C# mode here. So I'll do a next on this thing, and we're going to give it a name. Let's call it text box and variables and strings. Let's call it strings. Let's call it that instead. Yeah, that makes some sense. And let's put it out here in a folder I've got set up someplace out here. Let me just double check here, and this is probably just fine where I've got it. So I'm going to select this, and that's where we'll actually create the application, so we can get a good jump on that thing. And it's going to come up, and you've seen this before. I've got multiple monitors, so I come up with a setting that I need to change. I'm going to change this to Visual Studio setting 100% display, so I'll click on that. It'll restart for me, and I'll be set to go on here. What I want to do first is talk about the text box itself and what it is. Just like the label so much. We've used the label so far. We've used buttons so far, and we've got a pretty good handle on how all that works. But the text box is very similar, but it's used for the input. Now the interesting thing is you can use it for output as well. You want to use your label typically for output, but the reason it can be used for output is you're working with the properties once again. So let's go ahead and bring up I'm going to go to Common Controls here and click on a text box control, which is right down here, and you see it comes up on the side here. It looks somewhat like a label in many respects. I'm going to kind of size this thing if I can. And you size it basically by the size font you're going to be using. It'll automatically size itself. You can look at the size right here. I can change this height. Let's go to 40 on it and see what it does. It doesn't do anything. It stays right at 20. However, if I change the font on this thing to bold, and let's say a 12 so we can see it anyway on the screen, it does get a little larger. If we look now, it's now sitting at 26. It actually got down to 26. So it's a one-line thing right now is what we're looking at. So we've got this text box right here. The text box, it's a way to enter data. And one of the best ways of looking at it is actually to create a button of some kind. So we're going to put something down here real quickly. Let's go to a button and show you how you can work with the text box. Actually, let's go ahead and do the button first. We're going to bring this guy up here, and I'm going to lay it on the side, and I'm going to call this Add Text to Text Box. Give that a name or a form. Add text to text box, and there it is. Now let's go ahead and increase the size of this font too, so it's all looking about the same as we like to see. Make it a bold and make this a 12, and that looks pretty good. We might want to resize this thing later, but that's gonna be our button that we're actually going to have on here. If I go ahead and save this program right now and run it, I haven't done anything with the text box, but you're going to see it come up, and you're going to see that it accepts input very easily. Here comes the form right here. Okay, and you can see I can type things into it, whatever I want. I can erase stuff, type in my name, so on down the line. Whatever we want to do. So that's how that thing works. This button does nothing right now, so it's just kind of sitting here. So let's close this off. And while we're in here, let's give this form a name, and so we have an idea what it does. We'll give the form a name of working with the text box. And that gives us something up there. So you've seen how this thing works. Now we can take that. The reason we have this thing, if you look at the properties on here, we have a text property right down in here. And if we put something in here, it'll start out with that. And if we run our program, we have something sitting there. We can certainly erase that and type in something else. No problem there. So the text box is flexible from the standpoint that you're using it for input, but it also has a method that you can output things on it and make things work that way. You can also do it in code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a name. I'm going to call this our text. Let's see, working text box. And I'm going to give this guy a name right here. And I'm going to call this thing, this button here, btn add text. And we're going to go in here and create some code. So I'm going to jump into this program and create our first line of code that we're going to actually have in here. I'm going to give it a comment right away. Add text to text box property. Text box text property. So we got an idea what it does. And I'm going to say that txt and let IntelliSense guide me working text box right here. I'll go ahead and grab that. And in the text box property, I want to lay the string. What's wrong with? Let's see. Let's put down my dog Woofy. And leave it at that, and finish this off with a semicolon. And that should do it for us. I can save this, and I can run it. Now, as you can see, we didn't change the property inside the text box, so it still says hello in there. However, if I click on this guy, it changes it to my dog Woofy right away. And I can do that. I can even erase that. Because it's a text box. But I can put it right back in, clicking on the button there. So it gives you the ability to work with the property inside that text box property right now. Let's do something a little further than this. Let's go ahead and, first of all, let's go ahead and give ourselves a little exit button on here. Always good to have an exit button. Makes it a little bit easier to get out of the form rather than reaching up for that X up on the top of the form. And go up here to the font. Make that a 12. Make this true. And now we've got an exit here. We're going to need to size this a little bit better. That looks good. Call it button exit. btn exit. And we'll go ahead and write code for this right away. With a comment. Close the form. If I ever learn how to type perfectly, I'll be surprised. This dot close. You're wondering what the this stands for. It really is talking about the form you're on, because you could have multiple forms, and we'll get down to that later. I screw that on up there. It goes. Now it's looking good. What happened here? This needs to go down. There it is. Like my, this needs to be a capital C. I love IntelliSense because it does correct you when you make mistakes. And you make mistakes all the time when you program. So that's a common thing. So our close is right there now. So let me go back to our form. I want to add another button. So I'm going to copy this one. That way it retains the, that's the beauty of copying things. They retain the properties from the previous one that you actually grabbed. This one I want to call this thing copy text box to a label. Now I'm going to have to create a label, so let's go ahead and do that right away. Grab this guy right here. I got my label sitting down here. I want to take this label and I want to take the auto size off of it. And I want to make it the same size as my text box. So I'll just highlight that, use my format up here to make the same size both. And I'll align those things so the centers are there. That looks pretty good. And I may as well put them on the middle of the form right away as long as I'm doing that format. Center them form horizontally. And they're nice. They're there. That's looking good. And I've got, I want to change the property of this label too so that it looks as large as the fonts look the same as the text box itself. So I'll do that real quickly. And what are my fonts here? There it is. Right here. My bold is right here. And my 12 is going to go right in there for my font size. And now we're looking good. I don't need anything. I also want to create a background for this thing. So border style, I should say. So I'll click on the border style, fix single. That looks good. And then I'll jump down to my text property, get rid of the label. I don't really need that thing to say label on here. And I also want to change the alignment so that it comes up in the center of my label. And it looks very, very nice here. So now and I want to call this thing, I need to give it a name in programming. So I can call this LBL output. So there I've got something there. Now, I've created this thing, this button right here, create copy text box to label. So I'm going to give it a name because I want to write some code for this thing. So I'm going to say button copy to label. And then I'm going to go in here and copy the text box to label by simply going to this particular thing and giving it a comment. Copies text box to label. And I'm going to say my LBL output dot text, looking at that property, is going to be equal to my txt working text box dot text. And set it up like that. And that's all I need to say. I'm copying this particular property into this particular property. So let's see if this works. We'll save the program. We'll start it. Takes a few seconds to go. Our hello from the initialization of this property still is in there. If I want, I can go ahead and do my dog Woofy in here. If I want to copy that to the label, now I just hit this button and it copies to the label. I can also type something in here. I'll put my name in here. And I'll copy that to the label. It wipes out Woofy. But now I can also add it right back up here and copy it back down. So I've got the flexibility of being able to work with this thing and copy things from one to the other. So this is going to always copy what's in the text box over to the label. And this particular thing is always going to, this is going to add text to the label. So no matter what I put in here, if I blank it out, there it is. It works perfectly. That's fine. Let's do one more thing. Let's create another variable, another button, and let's lay it over here someplace. And we're going to call this guy clear. So this one's going to, we'll call it button clear. And I'm going to write some code in here. And it's going to, this clears the text box. I'm going to say that txt working text box dot text is equal to, and all you got to do there is put double quotes in, and it will clear out your text box. Let's give it a shot. Save all. Run it. Here's our program. That hello is still up there. I can actually copy that into my label, as you can see. And I'll hit my clear now. It clears out my text box. Add something in the text box, I can clear it. add it, clear it. Add it, copy it over here, clear it. Great. How about we clear both of these guys? That'd be kind of nice for a clear button to do. Just go in there and do the same thing here to my label. Label output dot text is equal to quote quote. Save it all, run it. Add my text. I can just copy this over here and add something up there. They're both got something in it now. Let's clear it. They both get cleared. Very nicely the way this thing works. I can type some garbage in here, copy that to my label. Same garbage comes in, clear them both. We're good. And the exit, of course, works. Okay, that does a nice thing for us. What I'd like to do now, though, is I want you to think about something a little bit different when we start looking at this thing. The text box allows us to bring something into our program. It allows the user to communicate with it and enter things. And with those things, we certainly can put them onto a label right away. But typically, we don't want to do that. Typically, we want to hang on to these things for later use. That means we need to store them someplace. And this is where we're going to see something called the string variable. And I'm going to create this in a global area. We'll learn more about the structure of the program as we get more advanced into programming. But right now, if we look at our code and look at our program and jump way up here to the beginning, we have all this stuff up here. I should have my block comment up there. And I'll do that a little bit later. But in this area right here, we've got our namespace, and everything in between the ellipses here is the class, or the classes that you might have in your program. Inside this class, which also has ellipses in it, are all the methods you're going to have for this particular class. At the very, very beginning of this class, we can store variables. And the way you do that, we're going to set up a string variable first. And so we'll say the word string, and we'll give this thing a string of, let's see, we'll call it str, my stuff, my entry. That's probably a good name for it. And give it a semicolon. Typically, after I set up a variable, I like to give it a comment. So I might simply say, we don't want that summary business in there. I just want to say / a variable, and call it that. I don't want this in here at all. I don't need it. Get that out of there. So I've got string my entry. Now what you're going to see here is, because this is created in the class area, it can be seen by all the other methods. Had I built it inside a method, it would only be seen by that method, be private to that particular method. This is going to be public to everything inside this class. So all these other routines can see this particular variable. That's one of the reasons I put it up in here, so they all can make use of it. Now what I want to do is I want to create another little button. And when I call this button, let's make a copy of this one here, put it over here. Let's call this one save text box to memory, and call it that. And for a lack of a name, we'll give it a programming name of button save, BTN-SAVE. And now we're going to go in here and code this guy. Write some code for it. And we'll give it a comment. Saves text box data to string variable. So we know what it does. And we're going to say that str my entry, which I created before up on top, is going to be equal to textbox working textbox.text. Exactly. I'm going to copy what's in the property of my text box into this string entry. And that's all I need to do. Do file save, and we'll do a run. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and type in the word Daffy Duck here. And I'm going to save that text box to memory. Bang. That did it. doesn't say anything. It just, we're taking this by faith. We have no idea if it's actually there or not. I don't know. You know, that's crazy. I could clear it and it still should be in memory, but we don't have no way of knowing that. So let's create one more button down here to let us prove this thing out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another button and put it right here. And I'm going to call this one Display Save Data. So I'm going to do that. Let's clean this up a little bit too and make these labels kind of equidistant apart. So I'm going to do a format, horizontal spacing, make equal. That kind of cleans it up a little bit. Now they're looking good here. Now I'm going to actually give this guy a name, BTN display memory. And so I can now write the code for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say displays contents of memory to label. And I'm going to say my LBL label output.text is going to be equal to my string my entry semicolon. All I need to do. This is going to take the contents of this variable and stick it in the label output area. When a string is set up, which we did up here, it's actually reserving some memory location that it's calling str my entry or str bozo or str whatever, and creating a location somewhere in memory where it can start storing all the bytes of the string we're actually creating. So those things are there. When we execute this little program down here, it goes to the memory of and the computer does this all for us, you know, fortunately. It goes out and says, okay, I want string my entry. String my entry, okay, I got that stuff stored in location, whatever. It goes and grabs it for us and makes it available. And we're going to pop it into the text property of the label right here. So this program is written, so we're going to be able to do this right now. Save all. We'll do a string thingy here. A start. Our program comes up. We've got our text there. Let's clear it out completely. Let's clear everything out. And let's type in Daffy Duck. I happen to like Daffy Duck. So I'm going to store him. And I'm going to save him to memory. Bang. I'm going to clear everything again. Nothing is showing. But in memory someplace, we have the word Daffy Duck stored in that string my variable. We'll display it. It comes right up in the label. Just like that. Clear it again. Display it. It's there. I can add text. I can add text to a text box. My dog Wolfie. And I can copy that text box to the label. That's no problem at all. But if I want to display my saved data, that hasn't been touched in memory yet. It's still there. Now, if I wanted to save my text box to memory, I can put my dog Wolfie right over the top of Daffy Duck, which I'll do here. And now if I display the saved data, my dog Wolfie has been saved there. It overwrote what was in that particular memory location. So the text box is very, very flexible, especially when used in conjunction with a variable of some kind. Let's go a little further than this to make even more sense on this thing. I'm going to do a clear. I'm going to do an exit. And I'm going to do one more thing on this thing. I'm going to change my program to give myself two boxes. I'm going to copy this guy and copy that and put it right here. And I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to get rid of the hellos in here. We don't need that in either case. This one is called Working Text Box. Let's call this one TXT Working Text Box. If I could type 2, give that a name. Now I'm going to extend this thing a little bit. Make it a little bigger. And I'm going to create another button down here. And how do I want to do this? What I want to do is I want to concatenate something. I'm going to just grab a button here, any button, paste it down here, and I'm going to call this concatenate the two text boxes. What does that mean, concatenate? It means put together. And we're going to see this in a second, how this actually works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write some code for this thing. Oh, I can make it a little bit larger so I can get that E in there. You know what I can do? I can simply take the font here, make the font a little bit smaller. Make it, say, an 11. That gets E in there. It looks a little smaller, but it's still there. And we named this thing, and we put it in code. I think we did call it button concatenate. We did not, so let's call it button concatenate. BTN concatenate. Now I'm going to go here and write some code for it. I'm going to say concatenates the two text boxes to the label. What I'm going to do for code now is I'm going to say, I want to get rid of this, make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see what's going on here in this code. But I'm going to say my LBL output.text is going to be equal to my TXT working text box plus quote space quotes plus my working text box .2.text and hit it with a semicolon on the end here. Oops, I didn't put the text box text in here. That's going to work much better now. I need a capital T. And I think we're okay over here. We got the text box in here. It looks good. Okay, now let's take a look at that and see what that thing does. I'm going to do a file save here and start this thing. And now we've got ourselves a program that's starting to look really strange. But I'm going to put in Daffy. And over here, I'm going to put in the word duck. If I hit this concatenate the two text boxes, it's going to apply the name in here with a space in between. Very nicely. I can do that with Elmer. Fudd. And concatenate the two. And it goes in there very nicely. So, and I could do that. I could change all these things to start, saving both of these to different memory variables or whatever. But you can kind of see right now how these text boxes can work. You can use input there. You can bring them together. You can do things with it and make them work. And when they work with a string variable, they can become very, very powerful because you can save them in memory, which is a great thing because you can use them later in your code and make all that happen. So this is a kind of an introduction to what the text box does and how memory locations can work. And we're going to explore that a little bit more as we continue. And I think we need to take a look at what variables can do, not just string variables, but numeric variables. Because what happens if we type in $12.46 and try to use that and maybe do some math on it? That's another question we're going to have. We'll take a look at that later. So you guys take care. We'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.